The alarm bells rang through the Galactic Communication Center. Technician Vextal's 4 eyes focused on the display screen that showed something impossible. The human home system had gone completely dark. Commander Zethkar, you need to see this, Vextal called across the vast chamber filled with blinking lights and humming machines. Commander Zethkar walked over on his 6 legs, his blue skin showing the worry lines that came with age. He had been watching the humans for 20 years now. They were trouble. Always fighting, always expanding, always making noise across the galaxy's communication networks. But now there was nothing. When did this start? Zethkar asked, looking at the empty space where Earth's signals should be. 3 hours ago. Every human transmission just stopped. No warnings, no distress calls, no goodbyes, they just went silent. Zethkar felt a cold feeling in his stomach. In all his years of monitoring alien species, he had never seen anything like this. Species didn't just disappear overnight, especially not the humans. They were too loud, too stubborn, too everywhere. The humans had been a problem since first contact 30 years ago. They came out of nowhere with crude but effective ships, demanding to know why alien vessels were in their space. Most species took centuries to develop faster than light travel. The humans did it in less than 50 years after they first left their planet. Their ships were ugly and basic compared to the sleek vessels of the Ethereal Collective or the powerful warships of the Krillian Empire. But human ships worked, and there were always more of them. Human traders appeared at every space station. Human explorers pushed into dangerous sectors that other species avoided. Human mercenaries took jobs that seemed impossible. The humans were also violent in ways that disturbed the more civilized species. When pirates attacked human cargo ships, the humans didn't just defend themselves. They hunted the pirates down and destroyed their bases. When the Krillian Empire tried to claim a human colony world, the humans didn't negotiate or retreat. They brought their entire fleet and made the Krillians back down. But they were also strangely honest. Human diplomats said exactly what they meant. Human traders honored their contracts even when it cost them money. Human soldiers protected civilians from other species as well as their own. Now they were all gone. Check the colony worlds, Zethkar ordered. Maybe it's just Earth that has problems. Vextal's claws clicked across the control panel. One by one, human settlements across the galaxy showed the same thing. Silence. Complete and total silence. New. Terra Colony, no response. Port Humanity, no response. Armstrong Station, no response. Vextal's voice got higher as he checked system after system. Commander, I'm showing no human signals anywhere in the galaxy. The communication chamber fell, quiet except for the humming of machines. Other technicians had stopped their work to listen. Everyone knew what this meant, but no one wanted to say it. Zethkar walked to the main display that showed the entire galaxy. Thousands of lights showed active civilizations talking to each other across the vast distances of space. But where human signals should be, there was darkness. Send messages to all sector commanders, Zethkar said finally. Tell them to report any contact with human vessels or colonies. Also send a message to the Council. They need to know about this. As Vextal sent the messages, reports started coming back. They were all the same. Human trading posts were empty. Human patrol ships had vanished from their routes. Even the human pirates who had been raiding shipping lanes in the outer sectors were gone. Captain Mortis of the Hegemony Border Patrol sent a message that made everyone in the communication center stop working. 3 days ago, his ships had been chasing a human smuggler through the Vega system. The human ship had jumped to faster than light speed to escape. But when Mortis followed, the human ship was gone. Not just hidden or destroyed, but gone as if it had never existed. The Ethereal Collective reported that their diplomatic team on the human world of New Geneva had found the planet cities running normally, but completely empty. Power was on. Traffic systems worked. Even the automated farms were operating. But there were no humans anywhere. From the Krillian Empire came the strangest report of all. General Korana said that human military bases along the border had been abandoned, but not destroyed. The humans had taken everything valuable and left the rest behind in perfect order. It looked like the most organized evacuation in galactic history. "This doesn't make sense," Vextal said, reading through the reports. "How do you evacuate an entire species without anyone noticing?" Zethkar had been thinking the same thing. The humans had ships, but not enough to move billions of people quickly. They would have needed thousands of trips, and someone would have seen them. The galaxy's sensor networks watched everything that moved faster than light. It should have been impossible to hide such a massive operation. "Pull up the human communication logs from the last month," Zethkar ordered. "Look for anything unusual." It took Vextal an hour to go through the data. The human networks had been as busy as always right up until they went silent. Traders talking about cargo deliveries, military officers discussing patrol schedules, families on different worlds talking to each other. Everything normal. But there was one thing. In the last week, several human military commanders had sent coded messages that the communication center couldn't translate. The messages were short and went to many different human colonies and ships. Then they stopped. "Commander," Vextal said quietly, "I think they planned this." Zethkar nodded. He had reached the same conclusion. The humans hadn't vanished because of some disaster. They had left on purpose, taking their entire civilization with them. But why? The answer came from an unexpected source. Dr. Quill Eth of Ide, the Ethereal Collective, sent a priority message to the Galactic Council. Her research team had been studying human behavior for years, trying to understand how such an aggressive species could survive and grow so quickly. "The humans have been preparing for something," her message said. "Their military buildup, their expansion, their research into other species. We thought they were getting ready for war with us. But what if they were getting ready for war with something else?" Zethkar read the message 3 times. What could be dangerous enough to make the humans evacuate their entire civilization? The humans were afraid of nothing. They fought anyone and explored everywhere. What could scare them so much that they would abandon everything they had built? He looked at the dark spaces on the galactic map where human signals used to be. For the first time in his life, Commander Zethkar felt truly afraid. If something had scared the humans enough to make them run away, what was coming for the rest of the galaxy? The communication center's machines hummed quietly around him as he stared at the display. Somewhere out there, billions of humans were hiding, and somewhere else something was coming that had made them too frightened to stay and fight. The galaxy suddenly felt much larger and much more dangerous than it had that morning. And for the first time in 30 years, it was quiet, where the human voices used to be. That silence, Zethkar realized, was the most terrifying sound he had ever heard. 3 months had passed since the humans vanished, and the galaxy was getting nervous. Trade routes that human merchants had maintained were falling apart. Border conflicts that human mercenaries had helped control were getting worse. The careful balance of power that had kept the major civilizations from fighting each other was breaking down. Commander Vashati of the Hegemony Fleet looked out at the investigation ships gathering near the edge of human space. The Hegemony had sent their best sensor vessels. The Krillian Empire brought heavily armed cruisers, not trusting what they might find. Even the peaceful Ethereal Collective had contributed their most advanced science ships. "All ships report ready for jump to the Sol system," came the voice of Captain Threndal over the communication system. Vashiti nodded to her navigation officer. "Take us in." The combined fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed, covering the distance, to Earth's home system in minutes. What they found when they arrived made everyone stop and stare. The Sol system looked exactly like it should. The sun burned bright and steady. The planets followed their normal paths around it. Earth's moon still circled the blue-green world that had been humanity's birthplace. But something was wrong. "I'm reading no life signs anywhere in the system," reported Science Officer Kellum from his sensor station. "But all the human structures are intact." Earth hung in space like a jewel, but it was a dead jewel. The planet's light still shone at night, showing that the power systems were working. The orbital stations around Earth were in perfect condition, their docking bays empty but undamaged. Even the massive space elevators that connected the planet to orbit were still running. "Take us to Earth Station 1, Vashati ordered. "We'll start there." The investigation team's shuttle docked with the huge orbital platform that had been the center of human space traffic. The airlocks opened with soft hisses and the team stepped inside wearing their environmental suits. The station was perfect. Too perfect. The corridors were clean and well lit. Computer systems hummed quietly at their posts, but there was no one there. Dr. Yulseth, the team's archaeologist, examined the main control room. "Look at this," he said, pointing to a desk covered with papers and half-finished meals. "Someone was working here when they left, but there are no signs of panic or rushing." Vashati studied the scene. Coffee cups sat next to computer terminals, still showing the day's work schedules. Personal pictures decorated desks. But all the important data had been wiped from the computers. Not destroyed, but carefully removed. "This was planned," she said. They knew they were leaving. The team spent 2 days exploring Earth Station 1. They found the same thing everywhere. Signs that people had been living and working normally until they suddenly weren't there anymore. But all military information, scientific research, and government records were gone. Captain Coraval of the Krillian Empire led a team to Earth's surface. They landed in New Geneva, the city that had been humanity's center for dealing with other alien species. What they found there was even more disturbing than the empty space station. The city was alive but empty. Traffic lights changed colors for no cars. Automated food systems prepared meals for no one. Robot cleaners swept streets where no people walked. It was as if humanity had built a perfect machine to run their civilization, then left it to run forever without them. Corval's team searched buildings and homes, looking for clues about where the humans had gone. They found clothes in closets, food in refrigerators, toys scattered around children's rooms. But they also found empty gun cabinets, missing computer hard drives, and gaps where important equipment used to be. They took their weapons and their data, Corval reported back to the fleet. But they left everything else behind like they were just going on vacation. The most interesting discoveries came from Dr. Quilleth's team on Earth's moon. The humans had built several research facilities there, hidden in the lunar mountains. The collective scientists had always wondered what the humans were studying in those secret bases. Now they knew. "This is incredible," Dr. Quilleth said as her team explored the empty laboratories. "They have genetic samples from every major species in the galaxy." The lunar facilities were enormous. Room after room filled with biological research equipment, computers that had analyzed alien DNA, and storage areas that had held samples from hundreds of different worlds. The humans hadn't just been studying other species for curiosity. They had been mapping every alien race's biological strengths and weaknesses. "Look at this," called out research assistant Veltar from another room. "Weapons research. But not weapons designed to fight us. Weapons designed to fight something else." The weapons lab was empty of actual weapons, but the research notes remained. The humans had been developing new types of energy weapons, biological defenses, and armor systems. All of it designed to fight an enemy that used technology unlike anything in the known galaxy. Dr. Quilleth found the most disturbing room of all. It was filled with star charts showing the galaxy from angles she had never seen before. The charts marked the positions of every known civilization, but they also showed something else. Dark spaces beyond the galaxy's edge where something waited. "They knew something was coming," she whispered to herself. "Something from outside our galaxy." As the investigation teams prepared to leave the Sol system, Science Officer Kellum picked up an energy signal from deep space. It was very weak, and lasted only a few seconds, but it was definitely artificial. "Can you translate it?" Vashati asked. "It's in human code," Kellum replied. "But not any human code we've seen before. This is more advanced, more complex." The signal had come from beyond the galaxy's edge, from the dark spaces between galaxies where no known civilization had ever traveled. Someone out there had sent a message using human technology. Commander Vashati looked at the data scrolling across her screen. The humans had spent 30 years expanding across the galaxy, making enemies and friends, building colonies and fleets. Everyone had thought they were just another aggressive young species trying to grab as much territory as possible. But they had been preparing. For 30 years, They had been getting ready for something that no other species knew was coming. They had studied every alien race, built weapons for an unknown enemy, and planned the evacuation of their entire civilization. The question was, what had they been preparing for? As the investigation fleet jumped back to faster-than-light speed, leaving the empty Sol system behind, Vashati couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something important. The humans had left clues, but not enough to understand the full picture. Somewhere in the dark spaces beyond the galaxy, billions of humans were hiding, and somewhere else something was coming that had scared humanity enough to abandon everything they had built. The galaxy felt smaller and more vulnerable than it had before the investigation began. If the humans, with all their weapons and aggression, had been afraid enough to run away, what chance did the rest of the galaxy have against whatever was coming? Vashati looked out at the stars and wondered how much time they had left before they found out. 6 months after the humans vanished, the galaxy began to fall apart. Without human traders connecting distant worlds, supply lines broke down. Without human mercenaries and peacekeepers, old conflicts flared into new wars. The hegemony and the Krillian Empire started fighting over systems that humans used to patrol. The ethereal collective tried to maintain peace, but their gentle methods weren't working anymore. Admiral Korana of the Krillian Intelligence Division was studying reports in her command center when the first strange message arrived. A colony, ship from the Outer Rim, had sent a distress signal, then gone silent. When rescue ships arrived 3 days later, they found the colony empty. Just like the humans, her aide said, looking at the report. No signs of fighting, no bodies, no destruction. Everyone just gone. Korana frowned. This was the third colony this month that had simply vanished. All of them were on the galaxy's edge, far from the major trade routes and military patrols. But unlike the human disappearance, these colonies belonged to different species. First a hegemony mining settlement, then an ethereal research station, now a Krillian agricultural world. Pull up the locations of all the missing colonies, she ordered. Her aide brought up a galactic map showing red dots where colonies had vanished. Korana studied the pattern for a long time. The missing settlements formed a rough circle around the galaxy's outer edge. Whatever was taking them was working its way inward. "Get me Dr. Quillith of the Ethereal Collective," Korana said, "and send this data to Commander Zethkar at the Galactic Communications Center. I think we have a bigger problem than missing humans." 2 days later, representatives from all the major civilizations met on the neutral world of Haven Station. The mood in the conference room was tense. Everyone had colonies that had gone silent. Everyone was asking the same question: what was happening to their people? Dr. Quilleth had spent months studying the data from the human research facilities on Earth's moon. Now she stood before the gathering with news that no one wanted to hear. "The humans knew this was coming," she said, activating a holographic display. "Their research shows they discovered something in deep space over 40 years ago, something that visits our galaxy every 50,000 years. The hologram showed star charts from the human lunar base. Ancient astronomical data, hidden in archives that most species never bothered to check, revealed the same pattern repeating throughout galactic history. Every 50,000 years, the galaxy's dominant civilizations simply vanished, leaving behind empty worlds and ruins. The humans called them harvesters," Dr. Quilleth continued. "We don't know what they want or where they come from, but the pattern is always the same. They arrive from dark space beyond the galaxy's edge. They take everything living from world after world, moving inward in a spiral. Then they disappear, leaving the galaxy empty until new civilizations evolve to replace the old ones." Commander Zethkar looked at the data with growing horror. "How did the humans know about this? Why? Didn't they tell us?" "Because they were preparing to fight," Admiral Korana said, understanding suddenly. "Everything they did, their military buildup, their expansion, their research into our species, it was all preparation for war." Dr. Quillith nodded. "The humans discovered evidence of previous harvester visits in their own archaeological sites. Ancient ruins on Earth showed the same technology patterns as ruins found on dead worlds throughout the galaxy. They realized the harvesters were coming back, and they had maybe 50 years to get ready. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The humans hadn't been preparing to conquer the galaxy. They had been preparing to save it. But they ran away, protested Senator Velthar of the Hegemony. If they were preparing to fight, why did they evacuate their entire civilization? Because they needed a safe base of operations, Korana realized. Somewhere the harvesters couldn't find them while they prepared their final weapons. The meeting broke up with more questions than answers. But over the following weeks, as more colonies vanished from the galaxy's edge, the pattern became clear. The harvesters were coming just as the humans had predicted. They were working their way inward, taking every living being they found. The major civilizations tried to prepare defenses. The Hegemony moved its fleets to the outer rim. The Krillian Empire built new weapons and fortified their border worlds. The ethereal collective used their advanced sensors to watch for approaching threats. None of it mattered. When the harvesters finally showed themselves, they were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Massive ships that seemed to be grown rather than built, using technology that bent the laws of physics. They didn't destroy planets or fight battles. They simply arrived, scanned the worlds they found, and took everything living away. The Hegemony's finest warships fired every weapon they had at the harvester vessels. Their energy beams passed through the alien ships like they were firing at ghosts. The Krillian Empire's warriors threw themselves at the invaders with berserker fury, only to watch their attacks have no effect at all. The ethereal collective tried to communicate with the harvesters, sending peaceful greetings and offers of negotiation. The harvesters responded by emptying 3 collective worlds of all life in a single day. As world after world fell silent, the surviving civilizations finally understood what the humans had known for decades. This enemy was too advanced, too alien, too powerful for conventional resistance. The galaxy was being harvested like a crop, and there was nothing anyone could do to stop it. But then, as the harvester fleets approached the galaxy's inner worlds, where the major civilizations had their capitals, something changed. Long-range sensors picked up new signals from the dark spaces beyond the galaxy. Ships were coming back, but they weren't harvester vessels. The energy signatures were familiar but strange, like technology that had been transformed into something completely new. Admiral Korana was the first to realize what she was seeing. "Those are human ships," she said, staring at her sensor, displays in disbelief. "But they're using technology that shouldn't exist. The human fleet that emerged from dark space was nothing like the crude vessels that had left the galaxy months before. These ships moved in ways that defied physics, used weapons that seemed to tear holes in space itself, and radiated power signatures that dwarfed anything the harvesters had shown. A transmission came across all communication channels in the familiar, blunt style of human diplomacy, but the voice belonged to someone who had seen things no other being in the galaxy could imagine. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Human Expeditionary Force to all surviving civilizations," the message said. "We've been expecting these bastards for 40 years. Follow our lead, stay out of our way, and we'll handle this." The humans had returned, but they were no longer the same species that had left. They had become something harder, stranger, and more dangerous than anyone had imagined possible. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when you gave humanity time to prepare for war. The human fleet came out of dark space like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. Their ships moved in perfect formation, but they didn't follow the normal rules of physics. Some vessels seemed to fold space around themselves, appearing in multiple places at once. Others looked like they were made of living metal that changed shape as they moved. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Unbroken. The ship's name was fitting. Like the rest of humanity's military, it had been broken down and rebuilt using technology salvaged from the dead ships of previous galactic cycles. Chen herself looked older than her 45 years, her hair gone, gray from stress, and her eyes holding knowledge that no human should possess. "Status report," she said to her bridge crew. "Harvester main fleet is 3 days out from the galactic core," reported Navigation Officer Torres. "They've taken 17 major worlds in the past week. The Hegemony capital world is next on their path. Chen nodded. The harvesters always followed the same pattern. They started at the galaxy's edge and worked their way inward, taking every living being they found for purposes that no one fully understood. Previous galactic cycles had shown the same result every time: total harvest, complete emptiness, then 50,000 years of silence before new life evolved to fill the void. But this time was different. This time, one species had known they were coming. "Signal the fleet," Chen ordered. "All ships move to intercept positions and open a channel to the surviving alien governments." The communication system crackled to life, reaching every remaining civilization in the galaxy. Chen's voice was calm and steady, but there was steel underneath it. "This is Admiral Chen of the Human Defense Force. We know you've been fighting the harvesters for weeks. We know your weapons don't work and your defenses have failed. That's because you're fighting an enemy that's millions of years more advanced than anything in this galaxy. On planets throughout the surviving core worlds, alien leaders listened to the human transmission with desperate hope. But we've had 40 years to prepare," Chen continued. "We've traveled beyond this galaxy and found the graveyards of previous galactic cycles. We've studied harvester wrecks and learned their technology. We've made ourselves into something new, something designed specifically to kill things that have never been killed before." The human fleet split into attack formations, each group targeting a different harvester cluster. Chen watched her tactical display as hundreds of human vessels moved into position around the massive organic ships that had been unstoppable for weeks. "All units, this is Admiral Chen. You know what these things took from us. You know what they're planning to take from everyone else. Show them what happens when you try to harvest humanity." The first human attack came without warning. The ship, Defiance, appeared directly inside a harvester vessel, its weapons tearing the alien ship apart from within before disappearing again. The Retribution fired weapons that seemed to erase sections of harvester ships from existence. The Vengeance released clouds of microscopic machines that ate through harvester hulls like acid. For the first time in galactic history, harvester ships began to die. The aliens watching from their surviving worlds couldn't believe what they were seeing. The harvesters, who had seemed like gods of destruction, were being torn apart by human weapons that used technology beyond anything in known science. "How are they doing this?" Admiral Korana asked from her command center on the Krillian homeworld. Dr. Quilleth, who had been studying the battle through her sensors, had part of the answer. "They're using harvester technology against them, but it's been modified, improved, combined with human engineering in ways that shouldn't be possible. The truth was more complex than any alien civilization could understand. Humanity had spent 40 years traveling to dead galaxies, searching through the ruins left by previous harvester attacks. They had found crashed ships, abandoned technology, and most importantly, they had found other species that had tried to fight back. Each dead galaxy held clues about harvester weaknesses. Each destroyed civilization had left behind weapons or defenses that had almost worked. Humanity had collected it all, studied it, and combined it with their own desperate ingenuity. But the cost had been enormous. Entire human worlds had been converted into research facilities. Billions of people had spent their lives working on weapons and defenses that might never be needed. Humanity had transformed itself from a growing interstellar civilization into a military machine designed for one purpose: killing harvesters. The battle raged across dozens of star systems as human ships hunted down harvester vessels with merciless efficiency. The humans didn't just fight their enemies. They hunted them through folded space, pursued them across dimensions, and tracked them to hidden bases in dark matter clouds. Chen watched from her command bridge as the last major harvester fleet was surrounded and destroyed near the galactic core. Her ships had taken damage and she had lost good people, but the main threat was broken. "Admiral, we're receiving surrender signals from the remaining harvester vessels," reported communications. "Officer Park." "No surrender," Chen said coldly. "These things have been harvesting galaxies for millions of years. End them all." The surviving harvester ships were hunted down one by one over the following days. Human vessels equipped with dimensional tracking systems followed the aliens into whatever strange spaces they tried to hide in. Every last harvester was found and destroyed, ensuring they could never threaten another galaxy. When the battle finally ended, the galaxy was quiet except for human voices on the communication networks. Chen stood in her command center looking at reports from across known space. The harvesters were gone, but the galaxy they left behind was broken and afraid. "Open a channel to all surviving governments," Chen ordered. Her message reached billions of alien survivors on hundreds of worlds. Leaders who had watched their civilizations crumble in the face of an unstoppable enemy now listened to the human who had saved them all. "The immediate threat is over," Chen said. "But this won't be the last time something like this happens. The galaxy needs permanent defenses, early warning systems, and military forces that can fight enemies from outside." "Normal space," she paused, knowing that her next words would change everything. "Humanity is prepared to take on that responsibility. We've already sacrificed our peaceful existence to become the galaxy's immune system. We'll continue that job for as long as necessary, but we can't do it alone. We need allies, resources, and cooperation from every surviving civilization." The response came from across the galaxy. The hegemony, the Krillian Empire, the Ethereal Collective, and dozens of smaller civilizations all agreed to the same thing. They would support humanity's role as the galaxy's defenders, providing resources and assistance for the new reality they all faced. But even as the agreements were signed and new alliances formed, Chen couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. The harvesters had come from somewhere beyond known space. If there were others like them, humanity would need to be ready. The galaxy had been saved, but it would never be the same. And humanity, which had started as just another aggressive young species, had become something much more important and much more dangerous. They had become the guardians of all life in the galaxy, whether that life wanted guardians or not. 5 years after the Harvester War ended, the galaxy was learning to live with its new reality. The old political structures were gone, replaced by the Terran Protectorate. It wasn't an empire in the traditional sense, but a defensive alliance, with humanity at its center. Commander Zeth Kar, now serving as the hegemony's liaison to the Protectorate, walked through the corridors of Haven Station. The neutral world had been rebuilt as the new galactic capital, but it looked very different than before. Human military personnel moved alongside alien civilians, their uniforms carrying weapons and equipment that most species couldn't even identify. The humans had changed, not just their technology, but themselves. The cheerful, aggressive traders and explorers who had first made contact with the galaxy were gone. In their place were serious professional soldiers who watched the spaces between stars with constant vigilance. Ambassador Zeth Kar, came a familiar voice. Admiral Sarah Chen approached, looking older, but still carrying herself with the confidence of someone who had saved a galaxy. "Thank you for coming to the briefing." They entered a secure conference room where representatives from every major, surviving civilization waited. The walls showed displays of the galaxy's edge, where new monitoring stations kept watch for threats from dark space. "We've detected something," Chen said without ceremony. "Long-range sensors picked up energy signatures beyond the galactic rim. It's not harvesters, but it's not natural either." Dr. Quillith, who now served as the Protectorate's chief xenobiologist, activated a holographic display. The signals suggest a massive structure, possibly artificial, moving through intergalactic space. It's still years away, but it's heading in our direction. Zeth Kar felt the familiar cold fear that had become common since the humans returned. Every few months brought news of some new potential threat. Rogue artificial intelligences from dead galaxies, dimensional parasites that fed on living energy, ancient weapons platforms left behind by extinct civilizations. The humans found them all and dealt with them before they could threaten inhabited worlds. "What do we know about this new contact?" asked General Korval of the Krillian Empire. "Nothing yet," Chen replied. "But we're sending a deep space reconnaissance mission to investigate. The Pathfinder will jump beyond the galaxy to make first contact." The Pathfinder was one of humanity's new generation ships, built using technology salvaged from a dozen different galactic cycles. It could travel farther and faster than anything previously imagined. and it carried weapons that could destroy entire solar systems if necessary. Is that wise? Asked Senator Velthar of the hegemony. What if this new contact is peaceful? Chen's expression didn't change. Then we'll establish diplomatic relations and invite them to join the Protectorate's early warning network. But if they're hostile, we'll deal with them before they get close enough to threaten inhabited worlds. This was the new reality of galactic civilization. Threats were identified and neutralized before they could cause harm. Peace was maintained through strength, and that strength was provided by humanity. After the briefing, Zethkar walked with Chen to the observation deck that looked out at the stars. They stood in comfortable silence for a while, watching the lights of ships moving between worlds that were slowly rebuilding from the Harvester War. Do you ever regret what humanity became? Zethkar asked. Chen considered the question for a long time. We had a choice 40 years ago when we discovered the Harvesters were coming. We could have tried to run farther, found some empty galaxy and hidden there until the danger passed, or we could have warned everyone and hoped the galaxy could unite to face the threat together. She pointed to a cluster of stars where new colonies were being established under Protectorate protection. Instead, we chose to become what the galaxy needed, even if it meant sacrificing what we wanted to be. Zethkar understood. Humanity had given up their dreams of peaceful expansion, cultural growth, and normal civilization. They had turned themselves into professional soldiers, scientists, and guardians. Every human child now grew up learning to fight threats that most species couldn't even imagine. But was it worth it? He asked. Chen smiled for the first time Zethkar could remember. Ask the billion families living on worlds that still exist because we made that choice. Ask the children playing in parks that weren't harvested by alien monsters. Ask the artists and poets and scientists who can pursue their dreams because someone else is watching the dark spaces between galaxies. She turned to look at him directly. We made our choice, Ambassador, and we'll keep making it. Every day for as long as necessary. Over the following weeks, reports came back from human deep space patrols. The new contact was indeed artificial, a vast automated probe from another galaxy. It was ancient beyond measure, and carried the knowledge of civilizations that had died before Earth's sun was born. The probe wasn't hostile, but it carried information about things that were. Its creators had built it as a warning system, sending it from galaxy to warn of threats that moved through the dark spaces between stars. Dr. Quillith spent months translating the probe's data files. What she found confirmed humanity's worst fears. The Harvesters had been just one threat among many. There were things in the void between galaxies that made the Harvesters look like simple pirates. We need to expand our defenses, Chen announced to the Protectorate Council. Deep space monitoring stations, faster response fleets, and research into threat types we haven't encountered yet. The other civilizations agreed, as they always did. They provided resources, personnel, and support for humanity's endless preparations. In return, they got to live normal lives while humans stood guard against nightmares from beyond the stars. Years passed. The galaxy grew stronger under Protectorate protection. New colonies were established, trade flourished, and civilization advanced. But always human ships patrolled the outer darkness, watching for the next threat. Sometimes Zethkar would visit the memorial stations, where empty human worlds once thrived. Billions of people had lived normal lives on those planets before humanity chose to become something else. The memorial stations were maintained by automated systems, keeping the empty cities clean and ready for inhabitants who would never return. It was a reminder of what humanity had sacrificed. They could have kept their peaceful colonies, their growing culture, their dreams of exploration and discovery. Instead, they had chosen to become the galaxy's guardians, protecting species that had once seen them as dangerous upstarts. The galaxy was safe now, safer than it had ever been in its long history. Early warning systems watched every approach route from dark space. Defense fleets stood ready to respond to any threat in hours instead of years. Research teams studied potential dangers and developed countermeasures before those dangers could manifest. But the price of that safety was paid by humanity. Every day, in the form of children who grew up as soldiers and scientists who spent their lives preparing for wars that might never come. Admiral Chen, now in her 60s but still commanding, the Protectorate fleet stood on the bridge of her newest flagship and looked out at the galaxy her species protected. She had lived to see threats that would have destroyed entire civilizations dealt with quietly and efficiently. She had watched alien species grow and prosper under humanity's protection. It wasn't the future humanity had planned for itself 40 years ago. But it was the future the galaxy needed, and humans had never been good at backing away from necessary jobs, no matter how difficult or thankless they might be. The day Earth went silent hadn't marked humanity's disappearance. It had marked the moment they chose to become something larger than themselves, something the galaxy desperately needed but had never known to ask for. And in the dark spaces between the stars, human ships continued their eternal patrol, making sure that silence never came to the galaxy again.